Hey addicts, welcome back. We're here for another Walking Dead discussion, and we're here to talk about episode 12, so we're going to dive right into it. Starting off at the beginning of the episode, we get to see Lydia and Alpha, and they're making their way back to the Whisperer camp after the exchange at the hilltop. And we get to see that Alpha is asking Lydia a lot of questions of, like, what did they do to her? What kind of intel was she able to get out of them? How many, weapons, defenses, crops, stuff like that. And Lydia does tell Alpha a lot of things. One of the biggest things, though, is she's not entirely truthful about, the revelations that she, obviously came to when she was there, and also the fact that she does not mention any of the other communities, even though we do know that she specifically knows about the kingdom in particularly. But with that being said, she does tell them about, what kind of crops they got there, roughly how many people, et cetera, et cetera. And so, obviously this mother-daughter relationship is not very good. So, this is more of a leader to a disciple type deal. But there is one thing that Alpha says that just caught me off guard, I guess, and it's a comment that she kind of asks Lydia, did they touch you? And I don't know why, but it just feels completely hollow because one, we know she doesn't care. Lydia knows that she doesn't care. So I don't know why, Alpha being the leader she is, I don't know why she would ask such an absurd question. But another thing too is just judging by the phrasing and the situation. And later on in the episode, it looks like they have taken the rape aspect out of the Whispers, which is a little bit disappointing. Not that I let me clarify this. I do not want to see, on-screen rape. I think it does add to just the pure evil that the Whispers are, and that's the thing that I'm a little bit disappointed of because, they took away the aspect in the governor in the show in season 3, and I think that did hinder a lot of, his presence in terms of him being an antagonist. And in the same way, I feel like they kind of do the same thing here where it kind of takes away a little bit of, what the Whisperers are. And so that's a little bit disappointing. But moving on, we get to see, and I'm going to be going in order of the episode. So, if I jump around, you'll know why. People that have been here for a while, you know this. So I don't know why I'm saying it. But anyway, we get to see back at the Alexandria, which is the first time in I think a couple episodes that we've seen Alexandria, and they actually they have the council now, so it's Michonne, Aaron, Sadiq, and a few other people, and they're talking about the radio that Eugene and Rosita were out to make the relay for, and this is one that's I get Michonne in this scene is absolutely right, in her thinking, and it is, right that, you're not trying to make enemies. You don't want to go looking for any. Obviously, she has a really good point now that they ran into the Whispers. But with that being said, there's just a lot of things about Michonne, especially in this episode, that just, I don't know, they get underneath my skin. I don't understand why she is so against wanting to help the other communities, and especially even in the scene they get to talk about the fair and how she specifically vetoed against them going to the fair. And so this is something that could completely change once we figure out this whole mystery that happened in the time lapse. But for right now, I'm just not liking it, and to be honest, it just maybe it magnifies my dislike for Michonne right now, just because in the comics she's being really bitchy. And so I feel like they're just setting her up for that storyline right now, and I'm not liking that because I hope they don't go that route. But anyway, that's for when we get to the comic. But anyway, we also get to see the love triangle baby talk of Rosita, Sadiq, and Gabriel. And that's one thing too. I think I mentioned it once before, but the whole relationship between Rosita and Gabriel, I don't know if there was any prior setup to that. It still feels really weird and just, I don't know, it doesn't feel, what's the word I'm thinking of? I can't think of it right now, but it just feels off. It doesn't feel like there's any connection there between those two characters, but obviously they're putting that as no, they love each other, and that Sadiq is more of the third wheeler guy, but it's his baby. It's not a big thing. I think this is just going to be, leading up to a death later on. But It is what it is. I wasn't a big fan of it in the comic, and if they're not going to touch on it in the show either, I think it got a little bit more screen time than it should have. But overall, it's fine. It's one of those things where I'm not loving it and I'm hating it. It's just there. But wanted to highlight it because if potential deaths do happen, this is going to affect whoever's left, and I'm curious to see how they're going to play that out because, like I said, they're using different characters than they did in the comics, so this might give it a little bit different dynamic, especially if two of them end up surviving. But moving on, we get to see Henry. They do a lot of I don't want to say time skips, but it is kind of a time skip where we don't see the journey, we just get to see the characters at the destination. And I'm okay with this. It is nice seeing them get there in certain episodes, but in this where they're especially trying to get through a good amount of stuff, I'm fine with seeing it, and we get to see Henry just show up at it's not their camp, but he gets to catch up with the Whispers, and unfortunately, being the dumb guy that he is, he gets caught, and he's able to take down one Whisperer, not kill him, but just demobilize him. And then we get to see Beta, which, to be honest, since the Whisper, I think the aesthetic of the Whispers is done really well on the show, but overall, they haven't really impressed me so much on the TV show. But Beta, I think this is a great adaptation. And for the life of me, I'm forgetting the guy, the actor that they got for Beta, but I think he's doing a phenomenal job, and I can't wait to see him later on. But just his look, the way he's carrying that character in his performance, I'm really liking that. That's the one highlight I would say out of the Whispers, at least for me. Moving on, we get to see Daryl on the move, trailing the Whispers, and this is something, like I said, it's one scene, but it is nice seeing. I appreciate it sometimes. I know it can be overdone at times, over-explaining or over-showing things, but, it ties in a loose ends. But the deaf chick, I still can't remember her name, but she, like we said last episode, I think it was, when I was talking about the whole lip sync thing, she can clearly read lips, and so when they do the sign language, it's like, it doesn't make any sense why they're doing that. And I love that they actually did that where she just tells Daryl, hey, just make sure I can see your mouth move. And he's like, okay. And then, they don't have to do the subtitles. They don't, have to do any weird sign language or writing on the paper. It just makes it flow a lot better. And I think that's why I like that scene a lot, that they changed it. So I'm hoping if she is on the show longer, that they keep it more like that. So moving on, we get to see actually back at Alexandria with Negan and Michonne. Michonne's actually first time seeing Negan back in his cell. And this is one, I've said it before, Negan, I don't know if it's just that Rick's not there to have the interaction with Negan himself, or if it's Negan's character that I'm just not interested in with on the show, which saying a lot because he's like my third favorite character in the comic. But I don't know. I do like the whole leader advice aspect that Negan had in the comic storyline, and I do like how they're playing it in this because Michonne, being the security in charge of the Alexandrian community, it brings a lot of what Negan knows best in her role, and that is keeping people in line to make sure, that people are safe and they do what they need to be doing for, the betterment of the community. And so I think that's the strongest bond that these two characters have. But other than that, the rest of it, it's, I don't know. And also, I don't really like how Negan just lets people walk all over him or seem broken after they name a few insults. Because, in the comic, Negan's much more vocal. So somebody says something to him, he'll say something right back, and it's right then. And, I don't know. I just like how Negan has that quick-wittedness, and he's able to, keep people frustrated in the vocal conversation. In this, and especially on a TV show, I don't really feel like we get that. And maybe that's one of the other reasons why I didn't like it as much. But, like I said, leadership aspect, that is going to play at least hopefully later on in the season. So I'm going to be looking forward to seeing exactly when and how Michonne comes back to Negan. But I don't know if you guys know, I don't cover news, and I know this isn't really the video to do it, but we do know Michonne, oh gosh, Diana something, right? Oh no, I'm losing it right now. That's not right. The chick that plays Michonne. Wow, I can't believe I'm forgetting her name. But we do know the actress is leaving a little bit for the show, so I'm a little bit concerned that we're not going to see the full potential of this if they save the storyline for later. But if we do get to it in the season, I'm looking forward to seeing it play out. Okay, so where were we? Oh yeah, moving on. We get to see the Whisperers actually come back to their camp, the main camp, and I was I was relieved to see how many there are, because while the group that was walking with Alpha and Lydia and the ones that showed up at the hilltop seemed like a good amount, I was like, oh, this better not be all that they have. And luckily, they kept it more comic accurate where there's a lot of them. And so that was one relief I really had. Although there is a couple disappointments in the Whisperer camp. There's a scene where Alpha gets challenged by one individual. And I don't want to say, I hate being the person that brings it up, but it is really prevalent, and it pisses me off whenever they do this. But you can definitely tell there was specific writing for having the guy challenge her, and then she was like, no, you don't have the balls to challenge me. It was actually your woman that instigated this. She's the real brains behind this. She actually has a spine to stand up to me. That kind of writing, like, honestly, I feel like it would have made Alpha a bit more, man, I'm just not getting my words right today. It would make her more formidable. That's the word I'm thinking of. It would make her look more formidable actually being challenged by a man and then fighting the man and winning, especially easily. And that's one thing that I was just like, wow, what a missed opportunity that they went there. But also, we have this interjection with Beta, and so you kind of get this thing where, like, well, they have this system where somebody can challenge the Alpha, the leader, but at the same time, Alpha has Beta, and she kind of uses him as the muscle. And I don't really think the way that system's structured that she would even, I don't know, it just breaks her code with having the strong, be the leaders and being ones that survived. Like, why would she need Beta to hold back, to protect her, essentially, if she was strong enough to lead these people. And so that was one thing too, because I know this happens in the comic, and I think in the comic, we get to see more of that, where like Alpha takes it on all by herself. She's like, nah, Beta, you just stand over there and look pretty and I'll take care of these goons. And so I really was hoping we got more of that, but we didn't, and so that just led that scene making me feel a little disappointed. I know TV only watchers will probably, like a lot of the stuff that I dislike. But it's just certain things, that you pick up, especially, we've seen a lot of villains so far, and I don't think, on the show at least, they've ever truly shown us, well, we have, but they've, truly been just downright evil. But a lot of the two villains, obviously on the show, the hunters, the ones that, I guess they would be the termites, and then the wolves. Those two, like, I wish we got more of that as like a main villain, but those are more of like side villains, and it's just a shame they haven't brought that same level of evilness or formidably as those seem to do. At least that's my take. Anyway, we'll get moving on. So we get to see back at Alexandria, we have this moment with Judith and Michonne, and I like that Judith lays down some burns onto Michonne, because she kind of calls her out, and a lot of times, her logic is Michonne's. I don't know. Some people still might. I'm not hating Michonne. I still like Michonne. I just think it's frustrating that they're writing her to be this stubborn, especially when Rick is gone. But I guess maybe that is one of the things you could justify, is since Rick's not gone to kind of help her, then there's nobody, since she was like the support to him, now that he's gone, there's nobody to support her back. So I guess that's maybe one excuse you give it, but she has a lot of ideologies that are kind of screw loose for she said that, you know, people don't change, even though there was a lot of people that have changed over their course in their group. And I love how Judith throws it back in her face, like, you changed, and especially, you know, probably because of whatever happened in the time skip. And so I like that moment, and I think it's the moment that Michonne really needed to switch things around. And so I like where they end off with Michonne. So that is a huge plus side. So I would say, I guess technically, since we got that payoff, it was worth it in the end. But at the same time, it's like, why even have it? I feel like it's just an excuse to, you know, drag out some things or cause new tension where there doesn't really need to be tension, because we know they're going to get back together probably, essentially. But moving on, we get to see that because Michonne has, you know, taken Judith's words to heart, that she goes and tells the council, hey, if you want to make another decision about going to the fair, I won't veto the decision. You guys can make it up for yourselves and take the risk. And so they apparently end up making that decision, because we get to see Alexandria loading up wagons to presumably go to the fair, which unfortunately they didn't spend too much time on that. We'll probably maybe get a hint of that next episode or a couple episodes later of who's all going. But just in this quick scene, I didn't really see any familiar faces except for Father Gabriel. I think he's going. So watch out, Gabe. But then we get to see back at the Whispers camp, and this is kind of going to the tail end of the episode where Alpha makes the decision of having Lydia prove that she's, you know, still a part of their group by killing Henry, who is, you know, now their prisoner basically. And this part of the episode too, it's one that has some ups and downs for me, but I do understand why they did it looking back. We get to see that, you know, this confrontation doesn't really play out because Daryl and, you know, his help is able to somehow send in a walker herd into the Whisperer camp, and then they sneak in with the masks on. And part of me understands why they had to do this remix, because, you know, spoiler alert for the comic, you know, Alpha died before Lydia really got to stay at the hilltop, at least if I'm recalling right. So, you know, they have to make some way that Lydia gets back to the hilltop and supports the survivors before, you know, the actual conflict comes, you know, if they want to, you know, not make this whole, like, oh, don't just watch out for her if she's out there, you know. But with that being said, too, I feel like they used a couple things that were a little bit rushed, or I wish they would have waited on. Like, for instance, Daryl using the mask. I think that's cool. I think Daryl should have been the one that wore the mask, but I don't know. I just, maybe they'll bring it back for the war that's eventually coming, or the conflict, I should say. But to me, I was like, oh man, I kind of wanted to wait until we got into some real use of it. But I don't know. It's just a little nitpick, but I hope it does come back, though. But the one thing I will lastly mention, though, is, like, how did they get those masks? Because I'm pretty sure we'd seen that the masks were kind of hanged up throughout the camp, but they must have had the masks on in order to get into the camp. And also the whole Walker herd bringing them in and then eating the Whispers. I just found that kind of stupid, because one, I would feel like the Whispers would have things in play to keep the herd out. I mean, it's their specialty. They're living with amongst the Walkers. So I don't know. That seemed a little just thrown in there just because. But I mean, I guess it's all right for the sake of moving things along. But that concludes basically the episode. And so we get to see, like, next on the episode, they're remixing a lot of things. And like I said, it's probably because Alpha's still alive, and you know, they're having to change things because of you know, bringing Lydia back and essentially things. But I'm really curious looking forward, because we get to see, let's see here, we'll get it. Oh yeah, we get to see that there's going to be the conflict between Daryl and Beta, the fight, which I'm super excited for that. That's probably my most anticipated thing of the next episode. And I really hope they don't ruin it. I'm not going to spend too much time because it's already getting a long video, but I would say that's my highlighted thing for the next one. It looks like they're going to start having some, where they're going to start trying to go out and kill the Whisperers. I don't really think that that's going to amount to much. We might get one scuttle, with that being Daryl and Beta. But I feel like it would be really early to have a full-blown conflict because, I'm going to talk about the border. I'm just going to leave it there in case you don't know what that is. But, the border was the sign of that they were going to go into a conflict between the Whisperers and the Survivors in the comic. And, with this, I don't really see what the purpose is of having the border if we're already in conflict, full-on conflict. Unless it's just like one of those things that they say, it's more of a surprise thing, not a marker, Or one possibility that we might see is, Daryl and Beta might have this conflict, and Daryl loses horribly to Beta, which I would actually like to see. So, we get this kind of, Beta's not to be somebody to take in lightly. And then we get to see that Beta takes Daryl back, and then Alpha shows Daryl kind of like the Whisperers ace that they have in the hole. And, see that, wow, this is a threat that we're not going to win against if they use it. And so Daryl's like, all right, we'll back off. He tells the other communities, and they go ahead and they go along with the fair. Then we get to see, the Whisperers showing up, and then, giving them the border as a sign of like, yeah, don't fuck with us. So that might be a route that they go to still keep the border. I do know that, we don't have many episodes left, but I'd imagine that they're going to drag out a little bit. Going maybe after next episode, we'll have probably like maybe 1 or 2 episodes at the fair. Then we're going to have the flashback scene of what happened in the time skip that caused everybody to be kind of on bad terms. And then, we'll get the last reveal with the Whispers of the season. So, I'll be honest, overall, this episode didn't wow me. There's parts of it that I liked seeing, mostly just Beta. And so going into the next episode, that's what I'm most looking forward to is, Daryl and Daryl and Beta's interaction and how they're going to remix that, because they're definitely probably going to change up some things here, and how Alpha's going to act, if they're going to keep her alive longer, which at this point, I don't know, like I still think it would be the better choice, but right now I'm not seeing much threat to Alpha just by herself. So I'm just going to shut up because it's already a 20+ minute video, but I hope you guys enjoyed the little discussion. What did you think of the episode? I've seen a lot of people say they absolutely loved the episode, which I'm not in that boat, but you know what? I'm not gonna deprive you of the things that you like. So you know what? If you like it, let me know. I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious to know if you guys loved this episode, if you liked it, but you agree with me, there's things in there that need improvements, or you would have liked change, or if you just absolutely hated the episode. I know I've talked to several people that absolutely hate the show now. But anyway, guys, I'll just talk to you next time, and look out for later this week. I believe Wednesday is when I should have the newest comic issue review up. So if you want to check that out too, stay tuned for that. But anyway, I'll just talk to you later. Bye.